Good morning, afternoon, or evening. So at this point, we've talked about how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Those are positive and negative numbers. Let's talk about how to apply this to order of operations questions. Now let me remind you of a few things about order of operations. When you're given some of these problems, one of the things I would do is replace any parentheses that represent multiplication with a dot representing multiplication. That can make things a little less confusing as we work through the problem. So like this example here, -4 parentheses 3 parentheses -8 plus 2. I think it's a good idea to rewrite that as -4 times 3 times -8 plus 2. The next thing I would do is complete any operations within the parentheses, following the order of operations. Now, sometimes there will be single numbers inside of parentheses to separate a negative number from an operation, but they aren't necessarily part of the grouping symbols of order of operations. We'll see some of that in our examples. Evaluate exponents. Remember that a negative base raised to an even exponent will always be positive, and a negative base raised to an odd exponent will always be negative. Next thing I would do is complete multiplication and division in order from left to right, and finally addition and subtraction in order from left to right. Let's take a look at our first example, -5 parentheses 2 plus -9. Keep in mind, you can rewrite that as -5 times 2 plus -9. You don't need to keep the parentheses around the -9 if you don't want. If you prefer to keep them, then keep them in your work. Now we have to multiply before we add. -5 times 2, since the signs are different, will be negative, so that will be -10 plus -9. Now we're adding two negatives, signs are the same, so that means we add the numbers and we tack a negative onto our solution. That answer will be -19. Number 2, -2 times -4 times -6 minus -12. On my first line, I did rewrite the multiplication with dots between the three numbers. The next thing I did was I did -2 times -4 to get +8. I'm going to highlight what step I did so it doesn't get too confusing for us. I did -2 times -4, that got me this +8. Next thing I need to do is do +8 times -6. It's going to get me -48. Now I have -48 minus -12. Now, when we have subtraction with negatives, remember we do keep change opposite and rewrite it as addition. This will become -48 plus 12. Since the signs are different, we're going to find the difference. We're going to subtract those numbers. 48 minus 12 is going to get us 36. -48 has a greater absolute value, so our answer will be negative. Number 3, we're rolling right along here. Here we have a fraction, but remember that fraction represents division, so that should be the first thing I do. -36 divided by 9 gives us -4, since those signs are different. -4 plus -7, add 4 and 7 to get 11. Negative plus a negative, negative. Our final solution will be -11. Number 4. This is really similar to, I believe it was question number 2. Let's rewrite this as 3 times -7 times -2 minus -18. The first step I did was I did 3 times -7. It's going to get me -21. I have -21 times -2. I've got to multiply first before I do anything else. -21 times -2 is going to be +42. When I have 42 minus -18, we can rewrite that as 42 plus 18 using change opposite. 42 plus 18 will get us 60 for our solution. Number 5. This is really similar to, I believe it was our first question. We have -5 times -9, which is going to get us +45. We have +45 -15. Since the signs are different, we'll subtract. 45 minus 15 is going to get us 30 for our solution. Number 6. Careful, there is a 2 outside of these parentheses, so this is 2 times -80 divided by 4 minus 14. -80 divided by 4 is going to get us -20. We have 2 times -20 minus 14. 2 times -20 is -40. -40 minus 14, please rewrite that using keep change opposite or keep change switch as an addition problem. -40 That's negative 14. Add those two numbers to get 54. Our final answer will be negative 54. Now, the next set of questions will evaluate the expression by replacing the variables with the numbers that they're equal to, and I included that up above here. So for BD over A plus C, once I replace the numbers, BD is B times B, so 3 times negative 4 on the top, over A, which is negative 2, plus C, which is negative 12. Start with that fraction. 3 times negative 4 is going to get us negative 12. We have negative 12 over negative 2 plus negative 12. Negative 12 divided by negative 2 is positive 6. 6 plus negative 12, since the signs are different, will subtract. 12 minus 6 is 6. Negative 12 has a greater absolute value, though, so our answer will be negative 6. Number 8. AC over B minus parentheses A plus D. All right, so this is what that's going to look like when we replace our variables. So we have negative 12 times negative 2 times negative 12 over 3 minus, in parentheses, negative 2 plus negative 4. Start with negative 2 times negative 12 to get positive 24. We have 24 over 3 minus, I also did negative 2 plus negative 4 to get negative 6 in that same step. 24 divided by 3 is 8, so now we have minus negative 6. We could use keep, change, switch, and rewrite this as 8 plus 6, which of course is 4. You can combine more than one step in the same line, but be really careful, double checking everything, not dropping off any negatives, not changing any signs until you're ready to do so. Number 9. B cubed over A squared minus parentheses C plus B. Replace those numbers first. For D cubed, we have negative 4 cubed, and I did put it in parentheses since that base is negative, over A squared, which is negative 2 squared, minus, in parentheses, negative 12 plus 3. For negative 4 cubed, we end up getting, I covered it up here, when we do negative 4 cubed, we end up getting negative 64. I should have thought about that. I'll pull that out of the way in a moment. At negative 64. I think we saw it in a previous lesson. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. 16 times negative 4 is negative 64. Negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. So negative 64 divided by 4 is negative 16. In that same line, I also did negative 12 plus 3 to get negative 9. I will rewrite this as an addition problem, so we will become negative 16 plus 9. Negative 16 plus 9 is negative 7. And again, I want to make sure to show negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 gets you negative 64. All right, last 3 questions. Whoops. Over this. We will see that in the next lesson. Number 10, PR over N plus M. All right, different variables here. So for PR, we are going to have negative 8 times 4 on the top over N, which is 2, plus M, which is negative 32. Negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. We have negative 32 over 2. Negative 32 divided by 2 is negative 16, so we have negative 16 plus negative 32. Signs are the same, so we're going to add. That will give us 48. Negative plus a negative, negative. All right, number 11. P squared over M. P is negative 8, so put that negative 8 in parentheses. Negative 8 squared over M, which is negative 32, minus, in parentheses, NP, which is 2 times negative 8, plus R, which is 4. Negative 8 squared is negative 8 times negative 8, which is positive 64. Same step, I also did 2 times negative 8 to get negative 16. 64 divided by negative 32. 32 goes into 64 twice. That will be negative 2. Also did negative 16 plus 4 to get negative 12. So be really careful with the details here. This becomes negative 2 minus negative 12, which we can rewrite as negative 2 plus 12. Final answer here will be positive. Final question, number 12. P cubed over R squared minus, in parentheses, M plus NP. All right, so that's going to be negative 8 cubed, or 4 squared, minus in parentheses, negative 32 plus 2 times negative 8. So negative 8 cubed, I'm guessing I covered it up here. That ends up giving us negative 512. We're going to end up with 64 times 8. It will be negative though since we have 3 negatives. So negative 512 over 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, or 16. In the parentheses, I did 2 times negative 8 to get negative 16. The next thing we want to do is negative 512 divided by 16. Your calculations generally won't be that difficult, but I do know that 16 goes into 51 3 times to get us 48. That will leave us with a remainder of 3, and when I bring down the 2, I know that 16 goes into 32 twice. So I know that that's going to equal 32, in this case negative 32. Negative 32 plus negative 16 is negative 48. Now let's do keep change opposite here. We have negative 32 plus 48. Since the signs are different, we want to subtract those. 48 minus 32 is 16. It will be a positive 16. And again, I did want to show you how we end up getting negative 512 for negative 8 cubed. I do think this is our last question here, that the numbers are probably a little bit more difficult than what you can expect to see on a quiz or test, but I still think sometimes it is good to challenge us. And if you ever need to show multiplication off to the side or your division off to the side, don't be afraid to do that. All right, at this point, we've covered everything in our unit or on integers. So we've done adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, and some order of operations questions related to these things. We'll soon have a test on this, so make sure you practice these skills in order to be successful. Thanks for listening.